Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Zowe Quarterly Update webinar series. I'm Sakach, Zowe Onboarding Squad Lead, and I'm joined today by Jakub Balhar, our Zowe Technical Steering Committee Chair and Squad Lead for the Zowe API Mediation Layer, which works out well because our focus topic this quarter is the Zowe API Mediation Layer. So Jakub's going to kick us off with the agenda and go into details on the topic, and then I'll come back and wrap it up with some community news. Over to you, Jakub.
Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar. I will be talking about three pieces throughout the agenda focused on the API mediation layer. The first one are the key plans that we have as a large-scale effort for the next 3, 6, 12 months. I will mention one of the important recent additions. You may have seen it on system demo. I won't spend too much time on it. And then I will go over integration of API mediation layer with other Zowe components, and I will do it in an example way where this presentation that will be, I believe, also shared contains the details examples that I was using when really in the real world trying to integrate with the Zowe on the server side. As for the plans, the current Zowe architecture, as we can see on the image that I believe some of you already saw in our Zowe docs, is a combination of multiple servers. Some of them are forming API mediation layer, and some of them are forming other parts of the Zowe, like CSS or app framework, app server. The API mediation layer itself, as we can see in this image, is formed from 5 different components. API gateway that routes all the requests, caching service that shares data across the HA instances, API discovery that acts as a service registry for all the services, API catalog that shows all the data that we have around the services, and SaaS component that gives us the functionality needed for authentication and authorization. Here we can see how it looks in more detail on one LPAR and across LPARs. So effectively on one LPAR, you have at least gateway, API catalog, discovery, caching, and SaaS. You have this combination of each LPARs that you want to deploy it on. If you want the whole solution to be highly available, you need to have at least 2 in case one of them goes down. The services are currently talking regularly to each other. Their registration, login is happening through multiple components. Personal access token related requests are going through multiple components. Onboarding of the services and heartbeat is going to discovery. So there are lots of TCP IP communication that's at the moment happening when the API mediation layer is just there and up and running, regardless of whether there is any other service that's actually onboarded and used. With the problems related to the usage of the API mediation layer, operationalizing it, and also with respect to the amount of CPU it consumes and the complexity of setting up, we've started exploring whether there is going to be a way to run the API mediation layer pieces as one service instead of multiple. We've done a POC. The POC was quite successful. We've actually done 2 POCs. The first POC was whether we would be able to run as a separate application on one instance of Liberty server. It works, but it doesn't bring that much value compared to actually running all of the services instead of as a separate service within one service, moving the architecture to something that's known as a modulet, e.g. different services are modules within one service that's deployed on one Tomcat, in our case, or other server instance. Here you can see an example how it's gonna look like compared to the previous version of the architecture. So instead of having 4 services that are always talking to each other, communicating and creating TCP/IP requests, the communication is now inter-process communication happening within the one process, which removes lots of the CPU usage, mainly because all the components we are talking about here are Java components, so they are using the ZIPs compared to the TCP/IP that actually uses the general CPU. So this is the key plans on how we want to evolve the architecture to make it easier. I will mention what it does to containers before I will go into the details on what do we hope to see as a benefits out of it. So currently, the container solution requires 4 different pods in the Kubernetes cluster, and then ZAS, ZSS, and ZOSMF running on the platform. With the current new with the new architecture, we have a few options. So first, it's possible that we will be able to deploy a different, like deploying the same service but having different modules turned off, which is one of the options we explore. Another alternative is that we will continue keeping ZOSMF and ZSS as the providers for some of the APIs that we need for ZOS. It has quite some amount of configuration issues usually, but technically speaking, it's probably gonna be possible. And the third one is obviously to run the whole application on platform and then running it again off platform. Compared to the previous time, it shouldn't matter too much that it's run on platform because most of the inefficiency that has been created by the registrations and everything would be effectively removed. So it won't consume more resources than the previous SaaS service that was effectively needed anyway. Though I will admit that it's not our primary use case, and while we understand the reasoning for why some of the components may run in containers, we, as the API squad, believe that API is better suited as a lightweight operational gateway and service registry that runs on ZOS and handles the ZOS related specifics. If we don't do any ZOS specific thing, there may be other solutions out there that may better fit some of the use cases. The main benefits that we hope to get from this change to the architecture. First of all, it's enhanced performance. We remove lots of the communication that needs to happen for idling, for all the requests that were coming through the API gateway. We hope to get, and I believe that we will get, the faster startup times with less communication and less JVMs that needs to start, for example, in ZDNT, and with far less TCP/IP communication that actually use general CPU. We will see far less general CPU usage and again memory consumption, as I would recommend to have larger heap for the new JVM, but probably not as large as the same as what we needed to have for the 5 processes or 5 services that needed to be run. So overall, the memory consumption, or at least available memory for the services, will probably decrease. As for operational efficiency, we expect that the fact that there will be just one JVM will simplify deployment a lot. We also expect that the decreased network traffic will make it easier for anyone to understand what's going on with the solution. We also expect less locks and easier debugging and troubleshooting. So in case you have some problem, you should have less places that you need to go to in order to understand what's actually going on. Whether all of these benefits will be realized, we will find out. We've started working on the actual work right now, and we are looking for a validation. So if you are interested in the potential benefits that this may bring, reach out to us, and we will figure out how we can work side by side to make sure that it's a success. One of the things that's been repeatedly coming to us is the hardware ICSF keyring support. It seems to be one of the common requirements among the users, specifically from banking industry. As of now, there are some parts of the support, but not everything that support ICSF keyrings, and is definitely not tested in a way that it needs to be done. What we plan to do with API ML is actually have a full suite that does use hardware ICSF keyrings and making sure that it works with the TLS, with the standard native TLS and not just with the ATTLS. As part of it, it will allow us also to limit the dependency on ZOSMF for authentication, making it easier to just deploy the API mediation layer and focus on API mediation layer capabilities in environments where ZOSMF is of limited capabilities, or not at all. The last large-scale area that we will be touching in the coming, I think this is going to be 9 to 12 months, is open telemetry support. We know that one of the huge problems is understanding what exactly is happening across the infrastructure, starting from the hybrid and distributed data center through mediation layer, and then to the ZOS services and the actual ZOS applications that are running behind them. And our plans for open telemetry should give us a better pane of glass and better understanding of everything that's actually happening in the hybrid data center. The expectation is that we will provide just the data, and that will be then integrated to solutions that most of the users and customers already have. As for the recent additions, the largest scale piece that was added with the last minor release was API rate limiting. The primary use case for API rate limiting is to limit any impact of DDoS attacks, where DDoS attacks that are attacking resource heavy computational APIs running on a ZOS should not be able to get through the API gateway, limiting the actual resource consumption, as the API gateway can relatively easily reject those requests that are over the top. It's possible to specify on per service basis and on API gateway itself. So effectively, API gateway, when this functionality is enabled, has some basic limitations, but you can customize them and or ask for them if they are not set on the gateway itself for any specific service. If you want to explore, I'm sharing here the demo videos. I'm not gonna be going through them in this demo, but they will be available as part of the recording. Yeah, so these are the two videos. Any questions towards either the architectural evolution that we are planning or towards the latest piece of implementation? If you have any, please write them into chat.
Jakub, I do notice that one attendee has their hand raised. It's Anne. Anne, do you have a question, or maybe that was accidental? Oh, okay, removed. Maybe not a question. Although there's something in the Q&A. Any plans to have Zowe dashboard to see the user interaction stats to Zowe components?
Well, we don't plan to integrate dashboard and provide the dashboard as of now. Our previous attempts showed that usually there is already dashboard, and we've been integrating in tools like Kibana and Kafka to get the data to other dashboards. Obviously, we will see need for such dashboard. It's not a difficult piece to showcase if we will find out that there is enough need for it. But it's not the primary scenario to provide the visualization itself. Any other question towards these areas?
None that I see.
Okay. Huh.
Whoop, one more. I do not see chat as enabled, but Q&A is. Can you clarify the timeline, the reorg of the API ML? Oh, can you clarify the timeline, I think, for the reorg of the API ML components? Is it weeks? Is it months, etc.?
I think that the current expectation is 3 to 6 months. Obviously, we may find things as we will be working on these topics. So, like the current expectation is that within 3 months we will be done. We may find out that something is more difficult than expected, and thus our expectation are actually 6 months. Any other?
Thank
Any
you for that.
other?
And I
Any
think
other
that's it
question?
for now. Oh, any plans to have TN3270 terminal navigation through Zowe APIs?
I can't say. I don't think that we plan this. I'm just curious about this. You mean like that you will have some tools within your TN3270 terminal that you access through ISPF where you will be able to easily use the Zoe APIs? Is this the ask?
For screen scraping.
Then I think this is more about the the TN3270 is available in the virtual desktop where it's possible to screen scrape. But this question is more towards someone from Web UI squad as they have more experience with this specific area. I think Sean, for example, Grady may be able to help you more with this question.
Okay, thanks for that. And I think with that, we've answered everything so far. Thanks,
Okay,
Jakub.
so if you have any further questions, feel free to ask them in Q&A and I will get back to them. Now I will go into an examples and examples on how you integrate with other components for the API mediation layer. So generally, first, I will be showing the different authentication methods as the primary piece because that's where the API mediation layer primary role lies. For the client side, e.g., if you are trying to access the API mediation layer or the services behind it, you've got three primary ways to access, and that's usage of the JWT token that you can get in exchange for your username and password via login endpoint. You can have your client certificates. It's usually issued by your IT department. Or you can ask the API mediation layer through its APIs to generate the personal access token. The main difference, there are some differences about them. First, JWT tokens are rather short-lived and they are usually used in the web browser environments. They must be generated before every use and they are not very good for service-to-service authentication. The CLI and Explorer for VS Code works with the JWT tokens, but as you see, the session length is relatively short. So usually right now, usually it's around 8 hours, but it's not really considered the most secure practice. So it may get shorter in many deployments, which requires you to log in at least once a day. If you don't want to go through this process, then you have two options available, either client certificates or personal access tokens. Client certificates, the good part that they are very standard. The bad part is that their management tends to be rather painful, but they are very good for service to service. Personal access tokens are very similar to client certificate in that they are also long living. The maximum length is configurable on the API mediation layer itself. The specific length for the specific token is configurable when you create a token up to the maximum. The good part for them is that they are scoped. So when you are creating a personal access token, you also provide the list of services that must be onboarded at this point in time. And it's possible to use this specific token only to access these services. For the other services, it will be rejected. On top of that, there are some APIs that allows revocation of specific token, revocation of tokens of specific user, or revocation of tokens that are valid for a specific service. Compared to the client certificates, you need to at least once generate it before using it. It's very good for service to service, even more so than client certificates, because it doesn't give you full access to all the services that the user has access to. It limits it only for the ones that the specific pipeline actually needs. Here I will be gradually showing how exactly looks this with different tools. So first tool is in a curl. For JWT token, we first need to log in to the specific API Mediation Layer instance. The login endpoint lives on gateway API v1 out login. It's a post request where we provide the password and username in a JSON. And as a result, we will get the cookie that's actually the valid JWT token. Afterwards, if we want to use this token, we can either provide it via cookie. This is the standard way that the browsers use. Or as you can see in this example, where we are querying gateway to understand the validity about the specific token via the gateway slash API slash v1 slash out slash query URL. This is a get request. We provide it via the bearer in the authorization header, as it's more natural for tools such as Coro to use it. And then, as you can see in the bottom, we see that it's a valid token. It has a specific user ID, specific creation and expiration time. If we want to use the JWT token in a CLI, it's possible. The way to do it, if you don't, so there are two ways. Either you already have your team config set up, and then you will need to set up the base API ML profile and figure out the proper basis, including the token type. Or if you don't have it yet, the way I was using was Zowe out login API ML that asks you for the detail about your API mediation layer, and then create the basic of the team config that you can use to access the services behind this specific API mediation layer. In my case, I am using reject unauthorized false as I'm running it against local instance that doesn't have a proper certificates. Whether you need or don't need this depends on your deployment, but at least for the production one, you shouldn't see this as a needed. So this is for the CLI and the JWT token usage. The next area where the JWT token can be used is the Explorer for VS Code. In an Explorer for VS Code, I was doing it through management of profile because I already had my team config set up for from a different method. And so within the manage profile, I went to log into the authentication service. I've provided the information necessary to obtain a new token. And afterwards, the VS Code Explorer was using the JWT token to access all the endpoints and services that were onboarded properly. One of the benefits or functionalities that you get if you are having the API catalog or in the API catalog is that it generates a stub of the Java code for a call of any method. In this case, I was creating and using the JWT token. So effectively, you can see the same scenario that I did with the curl, but I am using the snippet that was generated by the API catalog. A few notes to this. It's a Java code. It uses Unirest as the library to make the HTTP calls. In this scenario, it's used in version 149. It's possible that you will use your version in your rest, and then you wouldn't need the SSL context setup that I am providing in the beginning. It's easier to do it in a newer version. I provided here so that you can easily grab it out of this presentation, but most of it will be also if you go to the API catalog actually. Let's move on to the personal access token. For personal access token, it's necessary first to generate it. Generation is a post call to the out access tokens that generate. Here I'm using the IntelliJ IDEA as a tool to do it. They provide some functionality similar to Postman and others. A few important pieces in order for it to work. It needs to get the authorization in the basic form as a username and password. You need to provide scopes that are valid, e.g. the services that are provided within the scopes are actually onboarded to the API mediation layer. And you need to provide the validity in days. That's how long the person access token will be valid. Afterwards, if you do the post request and it's correct, you will get back as the content of the body the person access token that then you can use going forward. Here we can see an example where I am calling the discoverable pass ticket client that I've created, that we've onboarded and we are using as an example application within the API mediation layer. And here you can see that the personal access token was accepted and then it was transformed to authorization basic. In this case, it's pass ticket because that's what this service is asking for. So I will go through a similar functionality within curl. In a curl, post request to generate using the authorization in a basic. The result, as we can see in the bottom, is the valid personal access token. And then we use it to access a service that's known as DC pass ticket. The service accepts uh, the personal access token, and we can see the more details in the headers. In authorization basic, we can see it was transformed to the pass tickets as was requested by the service. So for CLI, you can obtain the path and provide it to Zowe via CLI. You can provide it either via the Zowe opt token value environment variable, or you can provide it as minus minus token value. So if you intend to use, for example, some IntelliJ pipeline, IntelliJ Jenkins pipeline, you should be able to do so. Important note, it's not possible to use personal access token in Explorer for VS Code as of now. It will for sure change in some future, but right now this doesn't work. Here is an example in Java. Again, it's based on the code snippet that's produced by the API catalog, and thus UniRest is used as the tool. And you can see again post request to generate the token with the basic authentication, and then DC pass ticket request that with the authorization, with the token provided in the authorization bearer that we would see in the outcome that it provides the right authentication method. The last method that I will be talking about is a client certificate. It's a very common way of creating trust and providing passwords. Important part for the client certificate is that the client certificate is not exchanged for something. It's just like when you call through the API mediation layer to access specific service, you just provide a client certificate, and it's if it's valid and mapped to a right user, it's properly mapped to the authentication method that the service needs. In this case, we again uh, call the DC pass ticket API that we've already seen before. We can see that we have a 200 response, that is correct. And then in authorization, we can see that we have a basic header with the pass ticket for which the client certificate was transformed. So the good part for this is if you already have the client certificate set up in your environments, it's relatively easy to use it and you don't have to switch it for something else. You just call all the endpoints that are going through the API mediation layer. Obviously, you have to have all the management around the client certificate set up. If you want to use the client certificate in the CLI, it's possible. You do this by providing the PEM public certificate and private certificate paths via the --cert file and --cert key file. Also, here is the link to the documentation where exactly you will find the information. As for Zowe Explorer client certificates against API Mediation Layer are supported. You will use the same files as for CLI, so PEM private key and PEM public key. And you again use login to authentication service, but instead of user and password, you use the certificate. And then the certificate will be used to handle your credentials needs. Here is an example in Java code where in Java code, I'm using the PKCS12 as the format of the certificates. So I'm loading the P12 certificates. Don't forget to provide valid password for your key store. And then I'm just calling the DC pass ticket or out query in this case to get the information about something, whether it's valid. And with this, I am giving a word to Rose, unless there are some questions. I think there may be one.
Yes, there is one. Does the API mail still accept authentication using JWT tokens by looking to see if the client request is the same cookie originally returned from the login request?
I believe that the answer is yes.
Okay.
Any other questions towards this type of usage and things that we've seen here?
I don't see others, but certainly all of you in the webinar, please continue to think of questions. If you have any, type them in the Q&A. Jakub, you'll monitor that while I wrap us up with some community news, upcoming events, and ongoing commitments. So first and foremost, if you go to the next slide, let's talk about Zowe releases. At this point, I'm hoping none of you are doing anything with the V1 release. The V1 release terminated support back in September of 2024, the last day of September, and is no longer supported by the community nor any of the conformance support providers. That being said, we do have two releases that are supported, the V3 active release and the V2 maintenance release. If we look over to the right, V2 was the prior active release. And just to give you an idea of how often we were releasing, we started, we note 215 back in March of 24, and we released approximately every 6 weeks, I think, with Zowe V2 before we transitioned to the maintenance stream, which began in August with the final release of V2, which was 2.18. We have not yet released 2.18.1. That is, we had planned to do it later last month. We're still working on introducing the .1 release. We expect it by the end of the month, I think, Jakub. That's the latest, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's the current expectation.
Okay, and remember that maintenance streams, so the long-term maintenance release only receives fixes, critical fixes, and security vulnerability patches. And that release is expected to be supported well into 2027. So you're fine if you are in fact running V2. For V3, that is our new active release. We introduced Zowe V3 in October of 2024. We followed that with the first continuous delivery release 3.1 in early February. And our plan is to continue with the continuous delivery releases 1 per quarter. For those of you who are interested in keeping up on the function and features introduced in the continuous delivery releases, we do run system demos around the same time that we introduce the point releases, where the squads cover all of the new feature functions introduced in that release, as well as other relevant information. Everyone is invited to those calls. After we complete the system the demos and the demonstrations, we follow that up with the plans that each of the squads are anticipating to work on over the coming quarter. So it's a good amount of time that you may be able to spend with the community to both learn what's been delivered and what's being planned over the upcoming quarter for the next continuous delivery release. Okay. Many of us were attending the recent Share conference, which occurred in North America in the District of Columbia in late February. Wanted to include this information in case you missed it. Certainly, if you were there and you have feedback for us, please let us know. If you missed it and you're interested in any of the content, we have a lot of content around the API mediation layer, configuring and gaining some more intelligence around the various components related to the mediation layer, as well as Zowe CLI, Zowe Explorer. And we did have a lab that focused in on Python in relation to Zowe CLI, giving our customers and many of you an opportunity to truly understand how these technologies really work in concert and how you are able to take advantage of them to execute on your modernization and automation initiatives. So certainly take a look at this. Many of the folks from the Zowe community attend not only the conferences in North America, but the GSE conferences over in Europe and conferences from the Open Mainframe Project all over the world. So certainly attend if you can and talk to any one of us in the community. We absolutely welcome your feedback and look forward to having you share your plans and struggles with Zowe. Next, we also want to make sure that you are all aware that, if you advance to the next slide.
There was meanwhile a question from Kathleen whether we will be at MTE and whether there are any ILT classes we can sign up on APML in the future.
Yeah, so the MTE is a Broadcom conference, Mainframe Technical Exchange. Certainly the Broadcom Zowe members will be there at the MTE coming up in our Europe location in Prague. Okay, so how can you learn more and specifically gain some context around use cases beyond looking at Zowe docs? The members of the Zowe community create blogs at medium.com/Zowe specifically for this purpose. Whether you're looking for a deeper understanding of specific technical scenarios like understanding Zowe client team config, or you're looking for more guidance on configuring for various authentication methods for the mediation layer, or perhaps you just want some examples of use cases and how customers are leveraging Zowe, this is where we encourage you to go and search. And if you have a need for a specific scenario and you're not finding it there, we encourage you to reach out to any of us within the Zowe community. And you can do so by checking out some of these areas over on the right, whether you're looking to attend a meeting. We have a meetings and events calendar at zowe.org. If you go to the community tab, we have links to the webinar replays. we list all of the Zowe core components on the zowe.org landing page, where you'll find links to the various GitHub repos where you can report issues and perhaps request an enhancement. And if you'd like to reach out to us directly, we listed all of the popular Slack channels. We are constantly monitoring the OMP, the Open Mainframe Project, designated Zowe Slack channels, where we have a Zowe help channel, a Zowe announcements channel. And for those of you who really aren't quite sure where to start, please just go to the Zowe onboarding channel, post your question or issue there, and we will help direct you to the proper folks as well. And I do want to point out that although you guys have many ways of looking at information and reaching out to all of us, we really only have one way to reach out to you, and that is through our user mailing list. And we encourage you, if you're not already a member of the mailing list, we encourage you to go to zowe.org. There's a link right at the very top where you can register for that mailing list, and we can make you aware of more upcoming events and important and relevant information as it relates to Zowe. Also wanted to mention that we are now on the Discord platform. This was, I think, originally investigated, and there was some interest in having System Z representatives join this platform to see if we could cast a wider net and give our customers and community members an area outside of Zowe to start having conversations really about anything related to the ZOS platform. We were encouraged, and we all in the Zowe community agreed that it made sense to have a Zowe channel here. You will find that down. I think we put it. Yeah, we put an arrow down there. It's beneath the hashtag general area. There's now a hashtag Zowe channel. We do have our SMEs monitoring this platform as well. So if you have a question or a comment, or simply just want to join in and see what others are doing out there, consider joining Discord. And let's see, one more. We know that we have customers who are at various points on their Zowe journey. Some are well advanced and have Zowe implemented and are running in production and are well on their way to upskilling more folks within their company on Zowe. But we also know that for some of you, you're more interested in learning the basics and gaining a general understanding of Zowe. And so we encourage you to check out the InterSkill course called Zowe Foundations. It's available for all of you to take at interskill.com/Zowe. This is something that is well worth the few hours of time that it may take you to run through it. It will give you a good general understanding of all of the components, and will also include some general, high-level guidelines on installation and configuration. I don't believe that this course is yet updated for V3, but we're working hand in hand with the InterSkill folks to update that content for you. And then finally, we do like to share some amount of update and relevant topics about Zowe every quarter during our quarterly update series. And so we have some tentative dates planned, June, September, December. We will get that information finalized and out to all of you through our mailing list. And please look at the other channels if you're interested in joining the next one, and certainly send us some topics for consideration if you have specific topics, or if, at some point you're more interested in open office hours where we can secure some of the subject matter experts and just have a candid, open Q&A to help with all of you with any of the questions you may have related to Zowe, and perhaps hear from others who are have implemented and have other questions related to Zowe. Join our mailing list, as I already mentioned, and for any of you who would like to replay this webinar, thank you to all of you who have attended live. Many of you I know listened to it on the replay. We do have a YouTube playlist where this will be posted, and you'll find all of the other prior quarterly webinar series recordings there. So do check that out. And I think with that, that closes out the community news. We do have a few more moments. If anyone has any questions about the topic that Jakub presented related to the API mediation layer, or any questions in general about Zowe. Just take a few seconds before we close.
Or complaints. We do take complaints as well.
We do take complaints. We view those as opportunities. All right, I am not seeing questions posted. I think we will call it a webinar.
Thanks everyone
Thanks
for joining
everybody
us.
for attending. Yes, have a great day. We'll see you next quarter.
Yes. Goodbye.